The LA Kings' early season struggles continue. There's some injury issues, and questions are starting to be asked. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also, one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that recaps the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Well, the LA Kings played Game 5 of the NHL season back home against the Pittsburgh Penguins, looking to get right on home ice, but they would have to do it without two key pieces, as starting goalie Darcy Kuemper was out of the lineup day-to-day with a lower body injury, and center and future Hall of Famer Anze Kopitar also day-to-day with a lower body injury. We knew coming in that Kuemper was not going to play, but that the captain, Anze Kopitar, was very much a game-time decision, but turned out he couldn't go either. So obviously that was going to have some pretty significant effects to the Kings lineup in this one, especially down the middle. Philippe Deneau would be at center, along with Andrei Kuzmenko and Adrian Kempe on the quote-unquote top line. Quentin Byfield would stay on a line with Kevin Fiala and Joel Armia. Alex Turcotte moved up from the fourth line to the third line with Warren Fogle and Trevor Moore on his wings, and Samuel Hellenius inserted into the lineup with Alex Laferriere and Jeff Malott on the wings. And of course, with Darcy Kuemper out, Anton Forsberg in net, and Phoenix Copley serving as the backup. If that catches any of you off guard, we'll give you the details on that coming up a little bit later on in the show. As for the game, things started off very well for the Kings. Looked good in the first period. First and foremost, they did not take a penalty in the opening period, took very few in the game, and looked to be on their way to a good night. They scored 2 goals and took a 2-0 lead, but it didn't last long, unfortunately, because once again, the Kings, for whatever reason, have a poor second period. They allow a power play goal and an even strength goal, and we were tied at 2-2. In the third period, special teams failed the Kings again. A short-handed goal gave Pittsburgh a 3-2 lead. That would turn out to be the game-winning goal. Penguin star Sidney Crosby, who'd been pretty much contained the whole game, gets his only point of the game on an empty net goal to seal the Penguins' 4-2 victory over the Kings. So as far as the big picture in this one, the Kings continuing to have repeat issues. It was penalties that was somewhat corrected, but the special teams continue to be a problem. Now, the Kings only took 2 penalties, certainly an improvement over what we've seen of late. It's by far the fewest penalties the Kings have taken in a game so far this season, but they still allowed a power play goal. They went 0 for 2 on their own power play, and the crucial goal of the game was scored against the Kings shorthanded. Now, did Anze Kopitar being out of the lineup hurt the Kings? Yes. Did Darcy Kuemper being out of the lineup hurt the Kings? Big time. But good teams find a way to overcome adversity, and right now, the Kings don't look like a very good team. I've talked about the Kings' tough schedule to start the season, and I think that's legit. And with all due respect to Pittsburgh, I think this was a winnable game for the Kings. And while I understand they were a bit shorthanded, you still need to find a way to win games like this. They're on home ice. And that was a huge factor for the Kings last year. But so far this year, they're 0-2 at home. They had a total of 6 regulation home losses all of last season. They've got 2 in 2 games this season. So back to the lineup for the Kings. I thought it was pretty curious what Jim Hiller decided to do here, and it didn't work out. Now, is this lineup the reason the Kings lost? I wouldn't go that far, but when you make these kinds of changes, and it doesn't work out, it doesn't turn out to, get you a win, then certainly you leave yourself open to being second guessed. I would have thought going into the game that Quentin Byfield would move up and play with Adrian Kempe and Andrei Kuzmenko. I would have thought that maybe it was Deneau with Fiala and Armia, Turcotte with Fogle and Moore, and, Hellenius with Laferriere and Malott. I get that. And I know Philip Deneau is a veteran player. He's defensively sound. But I didn't really understand he playing on that top line. He's just he's a bottom six center. He's not a top six center. So you may ask, well, okay, if you're not going to put Deneau up there, who are you going to put? Well, I said Byfield would be on the top line. I actually would have moved Alex Turcotte to the second line. He just is more of an offensive player. I think he's got more jump. I think he's got more energy. I think he and Kevin Fiala could have fit in well together. And you've got Joel Armia there as well. So I would have kept Deneau on the third line. Samuel Hellenius, yes, on the fourth line. Certainly would agree with that. But I just thought, and maybe Jim Hiller is thinking, I don't want to split up Byfield and Fiala. I want that combo together. Okay, but I thought that Philip Deneau on the top line was a bit of an odd choice. As for what Jim Hiller had to say after the game, I mentioned to the media about the decision to put Deneau on the top line. He said, quote, I think the one thing is Phil's line hadn't been going great yet, so we just wanted to give that maybe a different look. We contemplated putting Turks right with Kuzi and Juice, but we just thought maybe that other needed line needed a different look as well. So that's kind of what the thought was going behind that. End quote. That was Jim Hiller on why he decided to do what he did with the lines. Looking at the game stats in this one, of course, Kings lose 4-2. Shots on goal favored LA 32-26. So a better job by LA of the shot suppression in this one. The special teams we mentioned, Pittsburgh 1 for 2, while the Kings were 0 for 2. Kings dominated in the faceoff circle, winning 61% to 39% for the Penguins. Hits favored the Kings 23-13. Block shots favored Pittsburgh 15-10. So it's been an emphasis. It's been something we've talked about and scrutinized, breaking down the penalties. And I've got my Kings jersey on. The only thing that was good about my my birthday night at the good old hockey game was I did get my new Kings jersey, Andrei Kopitar. So the point is, obviously, I'm looking at things through a LA Kings lens. But if you look at the penalties in this, I don't think the Kings actually committed a penalty. At least I shouldn't say that. I'm sure that there was some infraction that they did at some point during the game that maybe wasn't called, but the two that were called, I thought were not good calls. In the first period, Kings go penalty free. Awesome. Second period, Quentin Byfield was called for hooking. I thought it was a weak call. I thought he very briefly got his stick parallel. He didn't tug on the hands or anything. It was not much to it. But they call it, and you got to kill it off. The Kings didn't. Pittsburgh scoring the power play goal on that Quentin Byfield hooking call. Third period, Adrian Kempe is called for high sticking. Now, the Kings killed it off, but the Pittsburgh player hit himself in the head with his own stick. He reacted to it. His head kind of flew back, and the referee thought, well, it must be the other player that did it. So just from looking at the calls against the Kings, I thought both calls were one was just flat out wrong, and the other one I thought was very questionable. So okay, there's some progress there. Not only did the Kings only take 2 penalties, those penalties were very questionable. But again, you only take 2, but you allow a power play goal. That's 8 power play goals allowed in 4 games by the Kings. At least 1 power play goal has been scored in each of the Kings' first 4 games against them. Meanwhile, the Kings have scored a total of 3 power play goals on the season. So again, special teams continuing to be a problem for the Kings, and I'm pretty surprised by both. We were sold that the additions of Joel Armia and Brian Dumoulin and Cody Cece were going to be big because they were going to make our penalty kill even better. And it was pretty good last season, but it was supposed to be downright great this season, and it is anything but at this point. Also, the Kings decided to put Alex Turcotte on the power play in Anze Kopitar's spot on the top unit, which I was very surprised at. He has not played 1 second of power play time this season. And I don't know that he had much power play chances last season as well. And I guess you want a center to replace Kopitar on the number one power play unit. But I thought that was an odd choice. I thought it was an opportunity to go with a more traditional 4 forward, 1 defenseman look on each of the 2 power play units. I would have put Brand Clark on the top pairing with Byfield, Fiala, Kempe, and Kuzmenko. Doughty runs the second unit with more Laferriere or Armia, and then you can either put Fogle or Deneau out there. Either way, whatever. And if you want to put Doughty on the top unit and Clark running the second unit, that's fine too. But I just thought that would have been, at least you're keeping people on the power play who have some power play experience, where Alex Turcotte had no power play experience at all this year and very limited power play experience in his career. As far as how the centers fared in this game, Philip Deneau had no points. He was a -1, 16 minutes, 48 seconds of ice time. He was 2 for 12 in the faceoff circle. Alex Turcotte had no points. He played 14 minutes, 16 seconds. He was 7 of 9 in the faceoff circle. Samuel Helenius, no points, 8 minutes, 13 seconds of time on ice, 1 for 1 in the face-off circle. So that was how the new alignment of centers looked. Did they miss Anze Kopitar? As you would expect, the answer was definitely yes. Yes, hockey is very much a team sport, but I thought there was clearly one man who had the finger pointed at him in the loss against the Penguins. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to bet across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, let's get into some of the individual performances for the LA Kings and their 4-2 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we will start with the goaltender, Anton Forsberg. And if you have listened or watched this show for any length of time, you know I am very fair when it comes to grading goaltenders, maybe even, lenient. I think other than maybe quarterback in the NFL, it's probably the toughest job in all of team sports. And I have a lot of respect for goaltenders. It's a hard job. That said, there is a certain standard that you have to have at that position. And I would say Anton Forsberg did not meet that standard in the game against Pittsburgh. As far as the 3 goals he allowed, the first goal, yes, it was while the Kings were shorthanded, and yes, it was scored by a future Hall of Famer in Yevgeny Malkin, but it was a very stoppable shot. Just a wrist shot from near the left faceoff circle, a little bit lower than that, and Forsberg just flat out didn't stop it. It went between his legs, and you just have to stop that one. A goalie's reactions to how he shows, after he's let in a goal will tell you a lot. And after that goal went in, Forsberg kind of, his body language said, oh no, and how did that go in? And that's a good question, but that's one he's got to stop. Second goal, a shot from about 3 feet out, 4 feet out. It just snuck under Forsberg's pad. It was a bad angle shot. The player really had nothing to shoot at, and it just squirts through him under his pad. You've got to stop that. Just like the first one, you have to stop that shot. Third goal, Kings are on the power play. They give up the partial odd man rush, shorthanded, shot goes off the post. So Forsberg was scrambling a bit there, but he was able to right himself. Rebound was put on him, makes the save, but then Pittsburgh had a player there to stuff at it twice, swat at it twice, and eventually he gets it in through his skate on the post there. Of the 3 goals that Forsberg allowed, this was not the worst, but it was still not good. You just have to have your skate, your pad strong against the post to prevent those stuff-ins. Forsberg didn't, and the result was a goal, and the Kings lost. Now, you could talk about winning as a team, losing as a team. I get that. I thought the Kings, did the Kings play perfect in all areas and it was the goalie that just let them down? No. There were other players on the team that didn't do their job, but Anton Forsberg was not close to being good enough in this game. Afterwards, head coach Jim Hiller was asked more than once about the Kings and the goaltender Arturs Shilovs for them. And he on more than one occasion in his press conference, Jim Hiller praised the Pittsburgh goalie and almost kind of was trying to say that he stole the game from the Kings. I didn't see it that way. Maybe you did. I know it's a little bit different experience watching the games live and not watching it on television and having the luxury of seeing replays as much. I thought Arturs Shilovs played well for Pittsburgh. I didn't think he stood on his head and stole that game from the Kings. I didn't think that. Jim Hiller was not asked about Anton Forsberg's performance. Maybe he didn't need to be. Let's move off of Forsberg. We'll look into some of the goal scorers. Warren Foegele scored his first goal of the season, a putback of his own rebound. Nice job to stay with the shot. His first goal of the season. I've mentioned Warren Foegele hasn't really looked like the player we're accustomed to seeing from him over the first few games of the season. Not that he's been terrible or bad, but he hasn't quite looked himself to me. But I thought he did look a lot more like himself in this game, not just because he scored a goal, but he also had 5 shots on goal and 3 hits in the game. Kevin Fiala scored the Kings' other goal, his 3rd goal of the season, had a very, very nice a couple of assists from his teammates. Joel Armia makes a great defensive play and steal. He then skates the puck into the zone, passes it over to Quinton Byfield, who perfectly put the pass on the stick of Kevin Fiala, who just had to tap it in. So nice of Fiala to finish there. Great pass by Quinton Byfield. And Joel Armia, I've said I'm not necessarily crazy about him being up on the 2nd line and Alex Laferriere on the 4th line, but it also doesn't mean that I can't acknowledge how good Joel Armia has been for the LA Kings. I understand why the coaching staff has decided to move him up. He's been very good for him. I just don't think offensively, when you're talking about players playing on your top 2 lines, I just don't think I know that he made a nice play and it led to a goal here, but talking about him putting it in the net, him setting up his teammates, he's a good player and I've liked his game. I don't know. And plus Alex Laferriere is a younger player. I know Laferriere is a type of guy. He's got a great attitude. He'll go down to the 4th line and he'll play just as hard as if he was playing on the top line. So that's fine. And maybe that plays a factor into it too. But I understand why the coaching staff likes Joel Armia. There's a lot to like about him. I just don't think offensively he can play a top 6 role and be effective. Brandt Clarke. Been saying Brandt Clarke has been the best player on the Kings so far this young season, or at least one of the best players. I thought he took a little bit of a step back in this game. And you know what? That's okay. He is still young. He is still learning. He is still going through some growing pains. He's going to have some games where he plays really, really well, and he'll have a few here and there where he doesn't play so well. And I didn't think he played that well against Pittsburgh. He had several turnovers, didn't have a point, was a -2. Played 17 minutes and 39 seconds, 2nd fewest on the team among defensemen. Andrei Kopitar, of course, didn't play. That means the captain is still 26 points away from breaking Marcel Dion's record as the franchise's all-time leading scorer. Hopefully he can resume that chase coming up on Saturday. Check in real quick the individual stats in this one. No multi-point game for any of the LA Kings on this night. Quinton Byfield led the Kings in shots on goal with 6, Warren Fogle and Adrian Kempe each had 5. Brian Dumoulin and Joel Edmondson each had 3 block shots to lead the team. Alex Laferriere led the team in hits with 5, and Alex Turcotte was the team's best faceoff man, winning 7 of 9 draws. So, how hot is the seat for head coach Jim Hiller? We'll talk about it next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for early season action. But let's get real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love what you see is what you pay. No hidden fees at checkout. Plus, I can see exactly what my view looks like before I buy the ticket in their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section and Gametime picks your seat, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. So the LA Kings are off to a 1-3-1 start on the season. Not what most of us expected. Definitely not what we wanted. I really thought this game against Pittsburgh was a get back on track kind of a game. Again, at home against a less than elite opponent. I get that not having Anze Kopitar and Darcy Kemper certainly played a factor in this latest loss. But as someone once said, quote, "You are what your record says you are," end quote. Now, this is a team that management has told us they believe is close. They hired a Hall of Fame GM in Ken Holland to tweak a few things in hopes that that would be the difference in getting this team closer than where they want to be. When it's all said and done, they added pieces in the offseason. We've only played 5 of 82 games. Clearly a long way to go, but I would have to say that the Kings have not looked like a playoff team to this point. The old cliche is you're not going to make the playoffs in October, but you can lose a playoff spot in October. So if things continue like this, I think we all know what the next step could be. Now, are we there yet? No. Are we there yet where we should even start to really talk about it? I don't think so, although you could argue I am bringing it up now. I'm talking about, though, legitimately saying a change needs to be made. I don't think we are there yet. It's just too early. We need to at least let the month play out before we start really discussing a possible coaching change. But the expectations are high. The GM was brought in to push this team across, well, I don't want to say the finish line, but to get them closer to the finish line. And this is not a good start to the season. So if we see more of what we've seen through the first 5 games, it's going to start getting talked about here and in other places. And things are not going to get any easier for the Kings. They will be hosting the 4-0 Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday, a very good team that made some really nice additions in the offseason. Canes are tied for the second most points in the NHL right now with 8, and they're coming off a 4-1 win over the Ducks in Anaheim also on Thursday night. Now, if the Kings can win that game against Carolina, that would definitely be a win to build on. As for what head coach Jim Hiller had to say after this latest loss to Pittsburgh, he said, quote, "We're not going to try to dissect too much here. We haven't given up a lot over the last 3 or 4 games, so we're just going to try to pull ourselves out of it. We're in a hole and we're in a funk. There's no question." End quote. So certainly outwardly, Jim Hiller is not panicking at this point, but we'll see how it goes. I think we all understand, and I think he understands very well what the expectations are, and right now they have not been met by the LA Kings. As for the status of Darcy Kemper and Ajay Kopitar for that next big game against Carolina, we'll get an update on Friday after practice, if they practice. I was hoping maybe both players were held out of the Penguins game in the thoughts that the Kings could beat Pittsburgh without him, and then they'd be rested and ready for Carolina on Saturday. That's probably not the case, but I was hoping that might be the case. Both are listed as day-to-day, so that would seem to indicate that both will be out short term. Doesn't mean they'll be back on Saturday necessarily. We'll have to wait and see. Phoenix Copley, by the way, was the backup to Anton Forsberg on Thursday night. That might surprise some Kings fans who may have missed the Kings reacquired the veteran netminder from the Tampa Bay Lightning in a trade for future considerations. This is after the Lightning had claimed Copley off waivers from the Kings earlier this month. As for future considerations, as I understand it, it's basically a gentleman's agreement that at some point the Kings might give the Lightning some sort of preferential treatment in making a deal. Then again, they might not. Just because the Kings agreed to future considerations doesn't mean at some point that they have to give Tampa Bay something in the future. Tampa Bay can't say, hey, remember those future considerations you owe us? It's time to pay up. It doesn't work like that, as I understand it. So it's just kind of a gentleman's agreement that, you help us out here, and maybe sometime down the line, we'll kind of scratch your guys' back as well. So the Kings haven't had to make any additional roster moves. Kyle Burrows is on injured reserve. So the Kings had 22 men on their 23-man roster. So Phoenix Copley will just slide into that spot. And we'll see how long he is there. But it's good to have Phoenix back with the LA Kings. All right. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up, we'll have our fan feedback show. It is your chance to sound off, to say, hey, everybody, it's going to be okay. We just need to give it a little more time, or to completely hit the panic button and say, we need to make changes now, whatever, or something in between. It's your chance to sound off. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, and you can always leave your comments in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube as well. We'd love for you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. And if you want some exclusive content, including special shows, group chats, you can send me an email to lakingsextra@gmail.com. We'll pass along that information to you, and you can also support your host by doing that. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time, and as always, go Kings, go.